Hey, what's up, guys? This is the Superb Diamond Range podcast, episode 20, and today's date's the 26th of January 2015. I'm your host, Superb, and today I'm going to be talking about organization. Organization at work, at home, and on your personal computer or Mac or Linux. I would say, to me, organization is very important. The more organized I am, the more easier my life is. The more, I can tackle things much easier than if I'm not organized. I'm going to start off with work. We obviously all work in different environments. There's people out there working in restaurants, coffee shops, offices, even construction sites, and even factories. They're all very, very different environments. But I would say that, being organized is very important. I mean, obviously you want to make sure that you're on time. And, in some people's cases, they like to arrive a bit earlier so they have time to organize their day kind of thing. And for me, it's like important, that say if you work in an office, to have a nice, clean office desk, and for all your files and folders to be in the right order, and whether it be alphabetical or date order, and keep everything neat and tidy. And if it's all messy and things are put everywhere, then it's going to be really hard your day, and you'll be less efficient, and you'll waste a lot of time as well, and you'll be less productive. Say, for example, if you're working in a restaurant, maybe you're working in the kitchen, you want to make sure that all your tools that you need are all laid out and easy to access, and you sort of clean after yourself, and you make sure that you follow the correct procedures, for food safety and so forth. And obviously, if you're in a factory, make sure that you're taking all the correct precautions and following the safety procedures that are outlined, so that you can protect yourself at all times. I find that's very important. I think that a lot of people that are organized at work find it much easier the day, and they have less stress, which is very important, because work can be stressful if you're not organized. So I think that's really, really important. I think I'll move on to home. Being organized at home could be anything from making sure that your home is clean, so dusting, hoovering, maybe doing some washing the clothes, this kind of thing is very important. I find that if you do shopping, it's a good idea to keep the receipts, and if you buy anything like technology wise, or to keep the boxes and keep the manuals, because it's always good to have them, and keep them all in order. And things like receipts, you never know if you might need to return something, so it's a good idea to kind of have a folder to keep everything in, so that you can access it easily. And I would say, obviously, when you're at home, you could sort of make a schedule for your time. So, you could make sure that, you get things done throughout your day that are important. Other things that are quite important in the household are things like, if you have like a lot of plugs, to kind of name the plugs, because, you might pull one plug out and it might be something that you don't want it to be. So I found that if you name the plugs, and you tidy up the wires so that the wires aren't crossing each other, and that they're neat and tidy, again, just makes you feel better. And obviously, living in a clean home as opposed to a messy home, you feel much more at ease, and you feel more relaxed, and even your mind feels clear when your house is tidy. So that's very, very important. So yeah, I would say that is very, very true about the home. Obviously, if you're going to do cooking at home, you want to be organized, have everything, that you need to cook. And, if you're going shopping, for example, make sure you bring a shopping list and you follow it, and you don't, do too many impulse buys. And, the one advice I heard was before going shopping, to the supermarket, that you should, always eat before you go, so that you don't, buy more food than you need, or just, pick up a load of junk that you really, really don't need. So yeah, I would advise that. You'll find a lot of people buy a lot of junk they don't need in the supermarket, particularly places like, well, I'm not going to mention them, but anyway, I'm probably going to move on now to organization on your personal computer, Mac or Linux system. I've always found that it's really a good idea to, when you find your computer working really slow, and this happens particularly on Windows machines more than any other, would be to give it a reformat. So, you would sort of start again, basically like a brand new, fresh beginning. So yeah, I would reformat the operating system. And, a lot of the times if I was using Windows, in particular Windows XP back in the day, I would always do a dual partition, whereby I would have a C drive for the operating system, Windows XP, and then what I called a D drive for the data part of the system. And I would find that it would be a lot quicker if I done this. And unfortunately with Windows, it wouldn't take long before you'd need to think about reformatting again. But definitely partitioning it does help, and it really just depends on the hardware that you're using as well, because a lot of PCs out there now, they have really good bits of hardware mixed with ones that don't quite match up to the same spec, and so therefore you get a PC that's very unbalanced. And that's why I strongly recommend my listeners to build a PC, if they can. And it's not only is it fun to build it, but also you can make it really great and make it balanced. And as I say, an operating system like Windows, even though it wouldn't be my first choice, would work and run a lot better on a more balanced system. Obvious things like adding more RAM or maxing out the RAM, which is what I tried to do, is a great idea. And obviously having a big hard drive, so you have more space to keep your data on, so that if you fill it up quite a bit, it's not going to matter too much. On again, going back to Windows, if you haven't got a security suite of some sort on there, then good luck, because it's really, really risky. So I would advise a antivirus, firewall, and make sure that everything's up to date, and that you schedule a regular scan or manually scan at least once a week, maybe 2 times a week. Also programs like CCleaner and stuff can be great at keeping things running nicely until the next reformat. But personally I wouldn't really recommend Windows, but I admit that it does have its purposes, and it is a lot of software is compatible with Windows, so I can't say too much bad about it, I suppose. I just find that I wish that it was a bit more better than what it is, and I've just got my own opinion on it, I suppose. But anyway, moving on, I'm going to talk a bit about Mac. I find Mac very user-friendly. To a lot of people it's a religion. I find it very secure, But, a lot of Mac users think that they can walk on water and that it's 100% secure, but I don't actually think that's the case. So I would advise getting like a firewall or, some kind of antivirus, even if you're using a Mac. One of the things I find, now that we're on the topic of organization, I went around a friend's house once, and his desktop was full of documents and icons and various things he downloaded. And another friend that was there as well sort of said to the other friend that, what a mess, like, look at your desktop, how do you find things? And he just says, I can't be bothered, I don't organize it. And the friend was like really organized, like his laptop, like all his documents were in folders, and basically it was all kind of in proper order so that he could find it. And he was suggesting to the other friend to give it a go, and he was like, nah, I'm fine, I like this mess, I like this way that it looks. And so yeah, I took a lot from that, in that it definitely does make your life a lot easier when you have folders for different things. So you might have a folder for downloads, a folder for films, a folder for music. If you're doing audio editing or movie editing, you might have special folders for those, which I think is great. So yeah, that's definitely important. And things like bookmarks as well. If you have bookmarks and maybe you make them alphabetical, that's really helpful as well, because obviously you can access websites much quicker, and you don't have to keep typing in the address or trying to remember the address, which is great. I also recommend mail clients. Some examples of these could be MacMail, Thunderbird, and what I use at the moment on Mac is Postbox. I think that they're really clean, easy way to check your emails, especially people that have more than one email with different companies, like, say, for example, Gmail, AOL, Hotmail. You can kind of access all your emails at one time through a mail client, and you don't have to keep typing in your password or going to a web page. And there's two types that you can choose. You can go for like an IMAP or a POP 3, I believe it is. And I think the POP 3 saves your mail on your computer, whereas the IMAP's more kind of synchronized and real time with your mail. But basically with the POP 3, it actually downloads the email onto your laptop or onto your computer. And I've always found that, like, if there was ever a day when webmail went down or the internet went down, and you might have like had a plane ticket or some tickets for the theatre, that if you had POP 3 and you'd already downloaded that email onto your laptop, then you wouldn't have the excuse of, there's no internet connection, or I can't access my webmail because there's a problem with, I don't know, Yahoo or Google. So I've always found that it's really good, and also you can print them off your email from your mail client. So it's kind of really, really safe way to download your emails onto something and be able to access them when you're offline, which I think is a brilliant thing to be able to do. So definitely a mail client is very important. I'm a big fan of open source programs. One example will be Audacity, which is what I'm using to record this podcast. I also do like a lot of programs that are on Mac, like Final Cut Pro, which is really good for movie editing. They're kind of just to give you an idea of what kind of programs I like. Also, Audio Hijack Pro is very good. But anyway, I'll move on to Linux. Linux I've always found really, really good because, when it comes to security, I feel that it's one of the safest out there. The other great thing about Linux is there's so many different distributions that, they're all really, really good. And it just depends on what you like. And, there's different ones for different people. Like one example would be if you're really into editing, whether it be music or movies or I don't know, photo editing, then, you could try Ubuntu Studio. And there's other Linuxes, a bit like Puppy Linux, which is a very, very lightweight, small operating system that can actually be run off a flash drive rather than actually installing it on your computer. And it's really fast. I mean, you can open up Firefox in no time, and it will just flash before your eyes almost. And there's so many, again, brilliant free open source programs on Linux. It's just unbelievable. And Linux is very quick, obviously, and there's not as much bloat on it as there are on, for example, Windows. I would say, honestly speaking, I would say that I love Linux more than any of the others. I do like Mac because I think that it is very, very good at what it does and very user-friendly. Although I would say that Mac is so overpriced, and I admit it is good quality, but I challenge anybody to, build a like-for-like, hardware for hardware system themselves versus, what you'd get with a really, really good Mac. And I assure you could build a better machine and put Linux on it, for a lot less money. And, if you like Mac and you find it easy, and there are a lot of positives to Mac that I haven't really mentioned, like things like Time Machine, being able to back up your settings and your everything basically at any time in any day you like. Time Machine is an amazing thing, and it is to do with organization, because obviously if you like the way you've set it up on a certain day, then you can sort of save it as it was on that day, and it will remember, and you can return to that time. It's pretty similar to what Windows had. It was known as System Restore, although I don't think it was quite as polished or anywhere near as good as that. But Time Machine is a great thing, and I really do respect that, because, as I say, all your settings and all your software you had at that time, and all the things that all your photos and movies that you had, will all be there on the day that you saved it, and previous saved versions. So I must say Time Machine is an amazing thing that Mac have done. And also I've heard that when you buy a new Mac machine, if you want to kind of move everything across again to the new system, that it can be good at transferring your data and things like that. Another great thing about Mac is obviously if you buy things from the App Store, if you log in to the App Store with the same email address and password, all the programs that you've purchased in the past or received for free will all be remembered, and you can re-download them on your new Mac system. So it's very, very good at, keeping everything together and keeping everything right. And again, I would sort of describe Windows as being easy enough for everyone to use, because a lot of people started off on Windows and most offices use Windows, but I would describe Windows as you need to kind of tweak Windows and make it, better than what it is for it to be good. Mac just kind of works straight out of the box. It's very user-friendly, very simple, and very easy, and it's good for editing, and it's also good for like media kind of projects that you might have. Linux, I would say, In Lego terms, like I would say it's kind of like Meccano. It's very deep and there is a lot to it. And, it can either be really easy or it can be really hard depending on what kind of day you want to make it. But for me, I'm very big fan of the challenge of Linux. But I know people within my community that are amazing at Linux and can do so many different things, and they really get a lot out of it because they put a lot of effort in. And for anybody that hasn't tried Linux, I definitely recommend it. I think it's an excellent operating system. There's many distributions out there. Just give one of them a try. And a lot of people now, I think they've stopped supporting Windows XP, and a lot of people are looking for alternatives. If they don't want to make the jump to Windows 7 or Windows 8, I would definitely recommend Linux over all of them. And there's plenty of alternative software that you can get that kind of does the same thing, if not better, on Linux. But again, if you want to spend the money and you want to buy a Mac and you're interested in media and having programs that are simple and just work, then I would definitely recommend Mac as well. That's kind of how I feel. But ultimately, just making sure that your computer is well maintained, i.e. antivirus run, making sure all your settings are done the way you like them, and making sure that everything's neat and tidy, in the same way that you walk into your house and your house is a complete mess. When you sort of log into your computer and you can see everything's a complete mess, it will kind of take longer for you to do things, and it will be harder for you to kind of get on with things. So I definitely believe that you need to just work on that, and as I say, you'll have a much more pleasant experience as a result of being organized on your computers. So I think it's a great thing. And another little advice I would give is back things up. It's very important nowadays to have an external drive, and some people would say to have a backup of a backup. So have two external drives. I'm not such a big fan of cloud or these virtual online storages, servers, for example, because I've always been a bit, worried about, losing your content, or, being spied on maybe, because you hear a lot of stories about things like that. So for me, having a physical hard drive that, as I say, doing a backup of a backup, and I mean, you can pick it up very cheap now compared to before, and you can get really large sizes, like from 1 terabyte to 3 terabyte, maybe even bigger. And I mean, there's flash drives you can buy now for like, say, between 10 and 20 pound. Maybe that's like $25 in the States. And, you can get like 64 gigabyte, and they're really fast transfer speeds, particularly if you have USB 3.0. So yeah, I would definitely recommend to get some kind of flash drive or hard drive to back everything up. And there's nothing worse than losing all your work and I think the only other thing I would talk about is your internet service provider. In my case, I use EE at the moment, and I'm very, very happy with them. But obviously, make sure that you're with a ISP that you really are getting a good service from. That your internet speed is fast, and that you're not getting any dropouts or anything. And it's ideal to get one that allows you to download unlimited. I'm a big fan of fiber optic speed, and I just think, why wait? And, the price now between the difference in the price between, broadband and, fiber optic is not as big a gap as it used to be. It's getting a lot closer, in the same way that dial-up, there wasn't much difference between the price of dial-up to broadband back in the day. And, we all miss our dial-up. We miss that ringtone that we used to hear when we were trying to connect. It was absolutely brilliant. But, even back then we were really enjoying it. And now it's amazing how fast things have moved on, and how fast technology has moved as well. So, yeah, that's I guess that's it pretty much for organization. I mean, I've got to be honest, my talk on work and home wasn't quite as in-depth as the computer one, but I guess you can tell what I'm probably more interested in. But anyway, I just want to thank all my listeners and for checking out this new episode of the podcast. I'll just give you my contact details in case you want to leave any feedback or suggest topics for future shows, or guests even that you recommend I should interview. So my email is superbdiamondrange@gmail.com, and my Twitter is @superbdiamondra, and also my website is www.superbdiamondrange.com. And once again, appreciate you listening, and hope to catch you again very soon for the next episode. Peace.